a tunnel in my life. Hold tight, some beauties appearing bright in my sight.
Hello Somerville, my name is Ed Hallen. Welcome to the Somerville Labor Show. The more we do these shows, the more we begin to find out that climate change and labor are two of the biggest issues ongoing today. You can just take a look at what's going on in these debates that we've been watching lately. It's really amazing, and we have a topic here, and we have got two gentlemen here that represent climate change and labor movement, and that's today's topic. And I'd love you guys to just hang in there with us, watch this show, and enjoy it. I have Craig Altomose, from the director of the Better Future Project. And we have Rand Wilson, who is also here. He's the chief of staff of SEIU. Craig, give us a little something. Tell us about yourself a little bit of what's going on with the Better Future Project and how long you've been doing this.
Yeah, so I've been in the climate movement for about 13 years now. Actually, I kind of joined it when I moved here to Massachusetts for grad school in 2006, and actually started Better Future Project in 2011. And yeah, our main program that folks are probably familiar with locally is called 350 Massachusetts, where we have 18 chapters around the state that work together on both local policy and their community level, as well as work together on state policy to try to advance the transition to clean energy.
What are you mostly focusing on with the 350? What do you find, what's the mostly focusing on?
Sorry, we focus on climate change
Right.
and clean energy policy, climate policy, mostly at the state level, some local policy as well. But we really see ourselves as a movement building organization, so we really try to get people involved in pushing for changes from corporations and from government.
Well, we had to drag you in here, you know that, right? Because this is what's been going on. I'm telling you that it just won't go away.
Yeah.
And some people may want this thing to go away, but it's not going away. It's here.
It's not going away. Yeah.
And Rand Wilson, Chief of Staff, SEIU, Local 888, familiar figure here in the city of Somerville. Tell us a little about what you're doing now and what's going on.
Well, you know, I work with Our Revolution Somerville and with Labor for Bernie. And then I'm also involved with the Somerville Stands Together Coalition, which is where I've met and been grateful for the participation of members of Local 350 who have joined that coalition. And to me, that's a very hopeful sign that environmentalists and labor are coming together at the municipal level to work on our mutually beneficial issues.
I couldn't have said that better because that's why you are who you are, Rand. So Joe Uline was on this show, and Joe Uline is the Labor Network for Sustainability president, founding member president. And Rand is familiar with Joe. You go back a long way with Joe. He came in, he flew in from Tacoma, Maryland to be on the show. He was wonderful. And he was talking about labor movement and climate change activists to find a way to create jobs and a program that would interlock both. I think Rand put that eloquently that way. You were talking about how to interlock both of them because it sounds like it's something that we need to talk about. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about in this show. So if I'm going to ask Jude if you could run like a 30-second video right now of you and Joe having that brief little exchange.
So here in Somerville, one of the things that we've been trying to do is to address economic inequality, which is rampant in this community. The divide between the haves and the have-nots is growing, and people are being forced out of the community. We're losing local jobs. And I think that creating a Green New Deal and addressing economic inequality have to be completely interlocked. We can't move forward on one unless we're moving forward on the other.
Okay, so what do you say about that? What do you think?
Well,
after watching it, no, seriously.
Just expanding on that, I think if we expect to be able to build political support for the kind of transformation that we're talking about to succeed, and it's vital that we do succeed. If we're going to build the necessary political support, and if we're asking people to make sacrifices or to make change to get to a more sustainable future, then we have to make sure that any sacrifices that are made are shared. And when we live in an economy where a handful of billionaires have, controlling the political system and have rigged the economy, people are not going to be trusting in the kinds of changes that we're talking about making. And so the political support isn't going to be there unless people see that in fact, this is going to actually benefit me. So
Bridging the disconnect, because that's exactly what's going on out there, because I think people who have their pensions in fossil fuel and have had them for years and years, and tobacco and all that other stuff that's just kind of like going away. I mean, that concerns a lot of people too. So I think that the Better Future Project 350 and you have a lot of work ahead of you. And you've probably been doing that. You want to tell me a little bit about what you guys have been doing to try to overcome some of those objections?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I think some of the objections come from the fossil industry, from the Koch brothers, these billionaires that are all about serving their own interests at the expense of working class people and people of color and people in communities across the country who have been really suffering from fossil fuel exploration, exploitation. One of the things that we've actually launched on our 350 Mass Action site is a no fossil fuel money pledge, asking political candidates to not take money from fossil fuel executives. Or the utilities as well, so that they can make their votes based upon the public health and the public interest. But I mean, I think the exciting thing is that the clean energy economy is on its way. As Gina McCarthy, a Massachusetts native, former EPA secretary, has said, the clean energy train has left the station. And there's actually more jobs now in the solar industry than there are in the coal, oil, and gas industries combined in this country.
People are afraid.
Yep.
They're still afraid. I've talked about this before. We've had people have visited Somerville Labor Coalition before in front of the board. We've had discussions with some people about pensions and things like that.
Sure.
Diversing is always, scary kind of a thing, right? But it's going to happen. I mean, I in my opinion, and I'm not a guest on this show. I'm a host. Okay, I understand that. But if you think about it, it will move into that direction eventually. It has to anyway, from what I've been learning as I've been going on here. So Joe Uline, another quote, the labor movement and environmentalists, he calls it environmentalists, can have a jobs program of their own. Now, Joe has a video. Drew's going to give us that video, which is an excerpt from something he did in 2015 in Philadelphia. Want to give us a little bit of that, Jude?
We are right now unlucky in the extreme because we know we have to leave in the ground 3/4 of all the fossil fuels that are out there. We know that. Science has been telling us that for some time. So here's the very substance that has built our society, our lives, provided the heat and the air conditioning and the automobiles and all the things we rely on, and we know we have to now leave it in the ground and find other sources of energy. That's a drag, but that is the fact. That's the science, and it's crystal clear. So what I say to my trade union brothers and sisters is that we need to step up to the plate and have a climate program of our own. Right now, the labor movement doesn't have an answer to the climate crisis, and we need to develop one. And what I say to my friends in the environmental movement is that you should have a jobs program of your own. And here's why. Because you are viewed, legitimately so, as being tone deaf when it comes to the issues working people face every day. And that will hold us back from the gains we need to address the climate crisis. People ask me...
Okay, so that was a great video from Joe, no doubt about it. That was 5 years ago, out in Philadelphia. Now I asked him here the same question. Has it changed? Does labor and climate change, do those two groups, do they finally have a job program of their own? And he basically said to me, you know what, we're working on it, we're not quite there yet. So I've thought about this, and you guys must have been thinking about it too, and that's why you're here today. And Greg had this whole summit thing going on in his brain, our assistant producer here, about bringing Rand and Craig here together to have a discussion about some of this, which is really important. So how do you feel about labor and climate change? Just a brief statement from each one of you on this, and how getting that together, how difficult do you think that might be, Rand?
Well, if we're talking about here in Somerville, and if we want to address climate change, we have to be talking about residential rehabilitation. 65% of greenhouse gas emissions are coming from households in the city of Somerville. So if we're talking about jobs, there's a huge opportunity to retrofit and rehab every home in Somerville to be carbon neutral, to be, what would the words be?
Net zero.
Net zero emissions, thank you. My concern is that that's all going to be done by low-wage, non-union labor with poor standards and no safety built in.
Why do you say that, Rand? Why do you think?
Because I look around right now and I go visit the job sites of these small developers, little companies. The unions aren't in the residential renovation market, and the work is being done by people from outside the community by and large, and it's not being done with good quality labor standards.
Safety standards, I'm sure.
No safety standards, no wage standards, no pension, no health care. So what we might be thinking about, if we're going to be creative about this and really envision the future, we need to be thinking about what's the scale and the employment of all of that residential rehabilitation work, and what does it look like over say a 10-year period. And let's think about how we can elevate those standards so that work is being done in a responsible way and in a high road, high wage, good benefits way.
Have you gotten that deep on that when you think about it? I mean, as far as the labor end of it and safety, and because we had a show last week on wage theft. And with wage theft, we really talk about safety as well. Keeping employees safe, and it costs money to keep people safe. And that's why a lot of unions, obviously, have these very strict safety laws, and there's OSHA, and and is it
also apprenticeship training programs?
Yeah,
We don't
so many different
It's
things.
not just laws; it's how you get into the trade and how you understand
Exactly.
the safety precautions that need to be taken.
What's your thought
So
on
people go through an apprenticeship program in a union environment. That safety and those standards are
From day
built
one?
into the training from day one. That's not happening in residential construction or renovation. So we need to be thinking creatively about how we can create those standards, provide the training, and ensure that this work going forward is going to be done on a high road level.
Have you given a lot of thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think for us, we see labor and climate as inextricably linked. That we need to be really working together. That we live in a vulture capitalism right now, where the powers that be, the moneyed interests, treat people and planet as disposable, and are willing to just throw people away, throw our environment away. And for us, we recognize that the environmental movement, the climate movement, is not strong enough to take those guys on by ourselves. That we have to be really in lockstep with workers and with labor, and that means supporting the interests of workers and labor and lifting up. So we're fighting for prevailing
Have you reached
wages.
out? Have you begun to reach out? Are you going to begin to reach out to labor? And specifically unions.
Well, let me just say another thing, which is labor is not strong enough to take on these forces by ourselves. So, we welcome this potential partnership with the climate change movement, because maybe together we can build up enough strength to take on the billionaire class and to take on those vested interests that are driven purely by profit and greed. And we need to, without allying ourselves with the Green New Deal, I'm afraid that you'll see the continued deterioration of labor standards and union membership in this country. I think in an alliance together, we have a great possibility. And we can do that right here in Somerville. This is a wonderful show, and I've never met
We're
before.
doing our best.
And and we've never met, we've never talked, but here we go.
So how do you make?
We're going to start right now, Ed.
The concerns that we're having here is that there's so many people out there right now that look at us, and look at people that support these good things with good labor and climate change, and think that we're like crazy people, and it's all self-interest, and we're worried about ourselves, and we want to take things away from them. And and the urgency that I've learned, so much of the urgency is happening right now. We get 8 years, we get 10 years, we get 12 years. How long do we have here? I mean, is it the end of the world? Is it Armageddon? Whatever it may be, we need to move quickly, and we all understand that. So this show is based on the fact that this Green New Deal is something that I believe that, in my opinion, from talking to people and the experts I've spoken to, has to happen. What do you say about that?
It absolutely has to happen. I mean, as you're saying, if you look at the wildfires in California that have been happening, if you look at what happened with to the Bahamas with the hurricane, or Puerto Rico, I mean, this stuff is getting really real. People are dying,
right.
and a lot more people are going to die, honestly, no matter what we do. But we have a choice of, is it some of us or is it most of us? And again, I think the choice is, do we just address climate change in a very isolated manner, or do we recognize that we've got a really broken economic system, or a broken economy, a broken society, where again we treat people as disposable commodities? And do we take this opportunity as we restructure society to address things like economic injustice, racial injustice, indigenous and immigration injustice?
Rand is right when he said we have one hell of a mountain to climb.
Yeah, absolutely.
We really do, and we can start it here. I want to move to the Green New Deal just real quickly. That was rolled out by Markey and Senator Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. They're co-sponsor of the 16-page resolution calling for Congress to tackle climate change by eliminating fossil fuels. Just recently, Bernie Sanders announced that he supported and called for a $17 trillion to be used for climate change. Will $17 trillion be enough? I ask you.
I have to admit, I'd say that's above my pay grade. I don't know the precise dollar amount. I think if you look at the cost of the damages, it's a lot more than that. And so to me, we need to spend whatever we need to spend to fix the problem. But again, I think we need to spend it in the right ways. And so we need to spend it for unionized, good-paying jobs with benefits, right? And we need to make sure that workers have a seat at the table as we're shaping the Green New Deal, so that the interests of workers are respected and lifted up.
With that, and the money that you're talking about, which is incredibly important, I'm going to ask Rand this question. He's wearing his Bernie button. He's wearing red, and red to signify something he told me that was very important, and Rand will share that with you later on. The 1% that people keep talking about, the millionaires, the billionaires, whatever, we're watching all of these debates that are on TV now. They're talking about that. Where will we get this money from? How will we finance this, in your opinion? Is there a way?
I think there's no choice but to try and redistribute some of the incredible wealth from the people that have benefited from this corporate greed, people that have benefited from the cowboy economy, from this rapacious capitalism. Now it's their turn to step up and pay for this Green New Deal. We want our children and our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren to be in a planet that's inhabitable, and we want a future that we can believe in.
So let me counter with that.
They're going to have to pay.
Some people are saying that, you know what, once you start going after the billionaires who have these companies, who are employing a lot of people, that's less people that we'll employ, that's less money that we're going to be spending, putting into the economy.
I'm sure there's somebody that'll step up to do.
I'm just letting you know what some of the things that we've heard out there.
I think just to respond to that, I mean, these billionaires, if you look at Bezos, if you look at Elon Musk, they're trying to escape the planet, literally, right? Like, they're investing all this money on this off chance that we can somehow survive on Mars. I think the rest of us are pretty interested in making life work here. And I think if we take their money, it's not going to sit there. Like, as Rand said, we need to retrofit every single building in this country. And those are not jobs that we can ship to China and say, hey, China, retrofit this house for us and ship it back. Like, the jobs are here, the buildings are here, the rail network we need to build out is here. Well, the solar panels we need to install are here, the wind turbines we need to install are here.
Well, we have been, but we can no longer allow this country to be hijacked like that. The work has to be done here, in my opinion.
Well, again, it physically has to be. Like, we can't, like, if you need solar panels in your home, you can't ship your home to China and or to Mexico and say, hey, you guys install this for us. The work has to be done here. Right. The question is, can we get the resources we need to pay for that work? And then can we set up the right standards so that the right, well-trained people are doing the work, getting paid, in a humane and responsible manner?
I seem to believe we can get this done on a local level.
Yeah, I think if we can't do it in Somerville, we're not going to be able to do anywhere
There you
because
go.
this city has.
Don't give me an idea for another shirt, please. Because I got shirts all over the place. It's crazy. Let me just move on real quick. Jeremy Brecker, and for those who don't know who Jeremy Brecker is, I tell you, I've read a little bit about this gentleman. He's a historian, a documentary filmmaker, activist, and author of books on labor and social movements. He recently wrote an article titled "Making the Green New Deal Work for Workers." I'm going to read you a little piece of that. Okay.
Oh, I got to get that book.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, it's not a book, it's an article, but it's crazy. It's so good. The Green New Deal presents the American working class with the greatest opportunity for improving our lives and gaining power since the original New Deal of the 1930s. Responding to climate change will require the creation of millions of jobs from pipe fitters, mechanics, scientists, and educators, which has the potential to establish a new policy framework that makes workers' rights and organizing central to the way our economy works. Okay? But wait, there's more. So, Craig, let me ask you this question: How has the Better Future Project been able to overcome those objections of the naysayers to transitioning? Because from wind to solar, okay, that's something. And I asked that question a little bit earlier, but that is something that we're going to need to really, you're going to have to pound away at that,
Yeah, well, again, I mean, I think for people who feel like we need to keep using coal, oil, and gas, the truth is there are very few people in this country who want coal or oil or gas. So what they want is electricity, right? They want to be able to get to work. They don't want to necessarily get to work using oil. Mm-hmm. And so the good news, again, is that the solar industry, the wind industry have a lot more potential. Really, the capitalists have figured out with coal and oil and gas, they've really mechanized these processes. They've made it so that humans there are so few actual people involved in the extraction process now. That there used to be coal miners chipping away at the coal mine, and now they've learned they can just blow the top off of a mountain and have a single guy drive a giant bulldozer, scoop up the coal, right? So they've really destroyed all of those jobs. They've mechanized away those jobs. And again, we thankfully don't yet have robots that are sophisticated enough to climb up to roofs and install solar panels and to do installation. Those are not mechanized jobs. Those are real human jobs.
You led me down where I wanted to go, and I appreciate that. So currently, the Green New Deal exists only as an outline of goals, as usual. There are some devils in the details. If fossil fuel use is eliminated, then workers who extract, process, transport, and use fossil fuels are likely to lose their jobs. If a zero-carbon airplane can't be built, workers in aviation, not to mention the military, will also face losses. If eliminating the use of fossil fuels were to lead to mass economic disruption, then all workers would suffer. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so again, I mean, the good news is that there are literally going to need to be tens of millions of jobs created. And certainly there's going to be some people who, if you are a coal miner today, if you're one of those few remaining coal miners, if you're an oil driller today, then yes, your job needs to go away. But I think, as Rand was saying earlier before the show started, we need to be really thoughtful and humane about how we deal with that transition. And so, I think Joe Uline had proposed that we give people 5 years of pay at their existing salary with their existing benefits as part of that transition. I think Rand would say we owe them longer than that. We should clear them out for retirement.
What do you think about that? So let me.
Well, there's a living or actual example of a just transition that occurred after World War II, when you had all the GIs coming back to this country, and there were no jobs for them. And guess what? They paid people to go to school or to lay on the beach. They didn't even say what you had to do with the money. They just gave people money for coming home and still being alive. And so, my mentors in the labor movement told me that, came back from the war and they laid on the beach for a couple of years. And they deserved it. And they were paid to do that because there were no jobs. So what I would suggest with this Green New Deal and a just transition is that we pay people to stay at home or to do what they will. And I'm sure that most people want to participate and have a constructive role in society. And whether there's a 5-year threshold or a 10-year threshold, those are the kinds of things you work out politically.
I'm sure that most people would love to have a job like that, Rand. You want to put me down for 5 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's, for me, and I'm the host of the show, and I don't know as much as you guys do, unrealistic, in my view, how I feel about that.
But it's the only pathway to making the transition without creating the political opposition that would stall the kind of progress that we need to make.
Well,
it's going to cost us. And so we have an example here in Somerville, which is they wanted to put bike lanes on Beacon Street and eliminate parking on Beacon. Yeah, that 5-year renovation along where they repaved Beacon Street. And the businesses were up in arms because they were going to lose parking spaces. And there was this clash that occurred between small business owners who ran businesses like Pizza Pies or that Spanish restaurant and the liquor store down there at Washington Street in Somerville. Right. There was a clash between the small business owners and the environmentalists and the transportation advocacy community. And nobody ever said, what we need to do is compensate those businesses for the work, for the income that they lost as a result of making the transition.
I get the vibe. I get it. I do. I really do.
To fewer parking spots and more people on bikes. And that's the kind of solutions that we need to take. You've got to take your opposition down by essentially showing them that it's not in there. It's not going to be adverse to them.
Well, I have another...
We need to avoid the kind of clash that occurs between people that have jobs in the carbon industry and people like Craig.
So we'll see what people think about if they ever watch the show 30 years from now. But anyway, this is an opportunity. This is more from Jeremy Brecker. This is an opportunity to tackle economic inequality and reindustrialize America with a green economy through jobs that, with the right training, can provide career ladders for many low-wage workers who struggle to afford the high cost of living. And an analysis of the Solutions Project found that a transition of 100% renewables would create 4 million long-term jobs and millions more short-term jobs, more in detail than would be lost. Already clean energy jobs outnumber fossil fuel jobs by 3 to 1, but to compensate workers who lose their jobs in fossil fuel related industries had to aid fossil fuel dependent communities, new labor policies will be needed. So my question for Rand, what type of jobs would be eliminated and what kind of jobs do you envision would be created? This is a question for both of you. Give me like 30 seconds because we're running out of time.
You know, Craig said it, people that are working in fossil fuel dependent industries, people that are in extraction, people that are in those kinds of jobs are gonna suffer. That part of the economy, we want to shrink it, and we want to grow this other part of the economy. So we just need to make that transition.
And what do you think about new jobs coming in?
Yeah, so I mean, in addition to building solar, building wind, doing energy efficiency, the Green New Deal also calls for Medicare for all. It calls for a federal jobs guarantee. It calls for, I believe, universal pre-K. I mean, I think there's a sense that we need to invest a lot more, not just in the clean energy transition and building out the clean energy transportation system, but also, again, in these low carbon professions of caregivers and the healthcare sector, right? Like those are jobs that need to be created because we are underserving people right now with things like...
Yeah, I think Joe Uline discussed that too as well. He raised that question.
It's not called the green transition. It's called the Green New Deal. So it's building off of the concept of a New Deal that we had with the Roosevelt administration,
right, exactly.
Which was about social justice and about economic justice, and it was a restorative program.
And just to both, I mean, there's a Chinese, the Chinese character for crisis and opportunity are the same. Mm-hmm. And I think that we recognize, like, you know, it was during the Great Recession, during one of the greatest crises that our country was going through, that we created all these critical social welfare programs. And we are now approaching the next enormous crisis as a society, and this is an opportunity for us to strengthen the bonds of society, to strengthen the social network, the social protections that we have, and again, to really expand and broaden what it means to be an American citizen.
Here's what's going to happen. We are running out of time for purposes of the Somerville for Scat TV, Somerville Media Center, but we're going to go an extra 10 minutes. And let me tell you how we're going to do this. We're going to close this show, all right, for this half-hour segment. You're going to give us 10 more minutes. I'm going to pay you overtime for that, okay, at union scale wage. I'm going to give you guys each a shirt, and Rand always does this to me, but this is the When We Fight, We Win.
Oh, whoa, Ed.
That's from 2018. This is rolling up that hill on Prescott. Good for you.
Oh, yeah, that's beautiful.
And this is the one right here for Craig as well. We are going to go 10 minutes longer, so if people who tuning in can tune in from the Somerville Labor Show, please do that. But what I do want to say is I want to tell everybody, in unity there's strength. And what happens when we fight, Rand?
We win.
You got it. So see you guys later on, and we will pick you up in 10 minutes. Pick us up on the Somerville Labor Show. Thank you. How's that?
Hold tight.
Okay, we're back. As you can see, Craig and Rand are wearing their shirts, and you're picking us up now on YouTube on the Somerville Labor Show. I want to thank them for that, very much for that. We just got a little bit more to get to, and I didn't really want to cut the show short. So I've got more Jeremy Brecker things to talk about here on a quote of transitioning. While the Green New Deal resolution acknowledges the need, actual legislation will require more details. To get a new start in life, those who lose their jobs will need significant cushion and a transition period. Workers harmed by climate protection policies should receive full wages and benefits for at least 4 years, accompanied by access to no-cost education or training. Those ready to retire should be offered pensions with health care. All right, so this is something you guys mentioned in the show. The education and training would harmonize with the need to develop new labor force capabilities for emerging green economy. It could also help distribute good jobs more justly. The U.S. workforce has long been divided into the low-wage, low-quality job sector in which people of color, women, youth, and other marginalized groups have been concentrated on a higher wage, more secure sector that disproportionately includes white men. By giving priority to those who have been excluded from better training and jobs, the Green New Deal could help end these inequalities. What do you say about that, Craig?
100% agree.
You're on board? Okay,
Absolutely.
So you've been involved with this for a very long time anyway now. You've been doing it for a long time, 13 years. You mentioned the health care, which is kind of interesting to me, how this would affect that. What is it with the caregivers? Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, so again, the Green New Deal resolution explicitly calls for a Medicare for all type expansion, where every single person in this country has access to good quality health care. And that means to provide that health care, we're going to need to hire more nurses, more doctors, more hospital administrators and workers and people to, janitors to clean the hospitals, and that whole sector is going to need to expand. And again, also looking at caregiving in terms of, looking after the elderly members of our community, looking after the very young, if parents are working. The price of childcare around here is it's like a single person's salary to just have someone in childcare for the first couple of years of their life. And
So let me ask you.
And yet those child care jobs are paying poverty wages.
Yep.
Even though the cost is
Yeah.
the same as a college education, and
you know
something's
about
really
that.
wrong.
Yeah.
But we provide childcare from age 5 until age 18. But for some reason, we're like, first 5 years you're on your own. Like that's a role society. I think the
Only
Green
the
New Deal
most
is saying.
important 5 years.
The Green New Deal is saying we should step in. And I think there is something to the Andrew Yang argument of we should also value that work in other ways. If parents want to
What do
stay
you think
home.
about that tagline by Joe Uline, making a living on a living planet? What do you think that symbolizes?
That we need to do both. It's not just about saving the planet or just about jobs. We need good jobs on a good planet.
How about you, Rand?
We need a good planet with good jobs.
All right, so the Somerville Labor Show is always about discussing jobs and more jobs, but good paying jobs, as Rand always likes to say. And if we can get these jobs to be union jobs, all the better, because we believe that we're the righteous group, right? Okay, I realize that we're a little stuck up when it comes to that, but we're trying to protect people here and watch out for them. We are the watchdog in preserving workers' fair rights and representation. So I'd like to give you another overview of Jeremy Brecker representing his article about divide and organized labor. Here's a quote. Currently, organized labor is divided on the Green New Deal. A March letter to 10 unions of the AFL-CIO's Energy Committee said that while energy efficiency incentives and strong labor standards were needed, the Green New Deal resolution is far too short on specific solutions and could cause immediate harm to millions of our members and their families. On the other hand, Central Labor Council in California, San Diego, Imperial counties, and Los Angeles have endorsed the Green New Deal, which has a very large chapter 32BJ and 1119 in SEIU. So what do you have, any quotes on that, on the difficulty that they're having right now by embracing that, Rand?
You know, we need to have a proactive approach, not a reactive approach. And if labor wants to just, you know, be a stick in the mud, you're going to get rolled over instead of shaping this program and being a part of it, where we're being proactive and we can create and lead and ensure that, for example, here in Somerville, that all of that work to retrofit our houses in this community is done by union labor. If we're just going to protest, if we're just going to object, the work is going to go forward. Mm-hmm. You said the clean economy, energy economy train has left the station. Well, let's make sure we're on the train, and let's make sure that we're being proactive. And when we begin to shape things in Somerville, let's not wait until 2050. Let's start doing it now.
So I have a question from the audience. You know we have a live audience, right? Of one or two. Our assistant producer is here, Greg. Do you have a question for Craig?
Yes, I do. This is probably more for Craig than Rand, but you guys can both answer it. Is the approach of carbon capture a viable way to go in terms of reducing greenhouse gases?
So
There's a big debate about that.
yeah, absolutely. So my personal opinion is yes and no. The yes, so carbon capture can mean different things. We definitely need to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, and honestly, the best way we know about doing that is by planting trees, which soak carbon. And so we definitely need a big program of paying people good-paying jobs to go around and reforest a lot of parts of the world in this country that have been deforested. In terms of allowing companies to continue polluting and capture that gas and then bury it in the ground, I honestly don't trust that we have the ability to this is an invisible, odorless gas, and so to me, trusting that they're just burying it in the ground, I don't think is a plausible idea.
Okay, so we're at the end of our 10 minutes of overtime. Rand, any closing statements you want to make? Can we do this again? Can you guys have like a little summit? Do you think this is the beginning of something, or what do you think?
I would welcome the opportunity to work with you and with Craig to begin to bring, as we have already, to bring people together in the Somerville Stands Together Coalition,
right,
or in any other formation, to begin to be proactive about what we can do right here in our community. We can't wait for a carbon neutral economy in 2050. We need to start planning an accelerated pace to get there now.
So I'm proud of this show. I'm proud of what we've done. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank Craig Altomose from the 350 Better Future Project, Rand Wilson from Local 888. Thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Ed.
I always enjoy having you on.
Thank you so much, Ed.
Nice to meet you.
Likewise.
And when we fight, we win, and unity is strength. Peace.
Great show, guys.